Welcome. Thank you for tuning in to Neptune Knives. So today we're going to look at the Chris Reeve Umnumzaan a little bit more detail. This knife is a very popular knife. It won the 2008 Blade Show Overall Knife of the Year, and Mr. Reeves also had the 2000 to 2001 and 2003 to 2010 Manufacturing Quality Award. And this Umnumzaan is a very unique knife, and it kind of, in some ways, reminds me of a Bob Lum tanto, and some of the design features and the way it looks can be compared to the Bob Lum tanto. And as we get into that, I can show. But main thing, let's first do this test. Now, I had shown the Sebenza fail, and it's been 2 weeks now, and I'm still waiting for Mr. Reeve to give me back my Sebenza. But first, to just show this, okay? So here first, let's see, right? Okay, right? Right? Okay, I was on the phone with Mr. Reeves, and he had said to me, like, why does the lock need to be that strong? Like, what is it that you're going to do with the knife? Why would you ever do that with a pocket knife? Okay, and some people are going to contest this. They're like, correct. Why would you ever do that? You always do downward cutting. That's just illogical. Do that kind of testing or spine whacking. But it depends on the individual. If you are an individual who has to use it to possibly stab things, at that point, I've seen videos of like military guys and other goofy kids even. They stab something and it can disengage. Not this knife, but a locking knife. And it is what it is. It's on film right now. It is what it is. That's what happened, and but the point is, it's like, well, I can understand that. Yeah, it just depends on the function of the knife. Okay, all locks can fail, of course. There's a way you can make them fail. It's just, what do you have to do to make it fail, and what are you going to do with the knife before perhaps considering using or buying the knife and using it that way. You should know what can make it fail. In this instance, the Umnumzaan, when it receives negative pressure that's dynamic, a sort of jolt, it just doesn't grip very well here, because I think it's because of that ceramic ball. But whatever my hypothesis on this, the point is, there are features about the Umnumzaan that do make it good. Now, to start, when I first saw this knife, and I was new to YouTube, you're going to inevitably, first thing, when you're researching, you're going to hear about Chris Reeve. And Chris Reeve is the creator of this Reeve Integral lock. He is credited with it. And his Sebenza, which has been around for 21 years, had led to, well, 25 now. He had created this knife based upon the feedback that he had received and from his Sebenza. Now, the knife, to perhaps people who are new to knives, I can't pronounce it right, but Umnumzaan or Umnumzaan, however you say that, okay, it's Zulu, because Mr. Reeves is from Africa or South Africa or something like that originally. It stands for boss. And when I first saw it and I heard about it, I looked at it and I was like, man, that does look like, it'd go perfect with my FJ Cruiser, like it's got that same look, that kind of knife you take with you to the out wild and go mountaineering with. It's that knife that can do anything, kind of survive, any intense situation. But it's, not realistically that. It does have its strengths, but it does have its limits too. And that's why I want whoever is considering this knife to be cautious about and consider. Some of the things that perhaps limit its performance, okay, in terms of design. The main thing is this: if you were to use this in, if this to you seem like, to me it seemed like a heavy outdoor kind of knife you could use, it's not meant for that, first and foremost because of the grind. If you are new to knives, this knife is a hollow grind, and hollow ground blades are meant for slicing. If you take it to a piece of wood, for example, the best you can do is shave off thin little strips, and that's why, for example, a chisel grind or a zero grind, a Scandi grind, knives that are sought after perhaps on custom Emersons. And if you're not familiar with Emerson, he has a nicer high-end line that's called the Spec War, and that's for special warfare groups that specifically like those more of a chisel style grind, such as this custom Strider where it's a chisel grind. And the reason why is because when you scrape into wood, this, as you push, that edge, that slope keeps pushing this deeper into the wood, and it kind of splits the wood into more larger cracks, and it's much better outdoors. And even the fact that recurves help outdoors too in terms of cutting wood. You can see it in ethnic knives and all the time, the curved blades. So that's that first limit. So if you're considering it for some kind of outdoor use, it's not really meant for that. It's not going to. And plus, in outdoor knives, you're not looking for a razor edge. You're looking for an edge that is generally going to hold and can do bulk work, cutting large things. So hollow grinds, typically you'll find them on tactical knives. Tactical knives such as the Jazula, this Bob Lum Tanto is a hollow grind, and hollow grinds primarily excel at slicing, doing quick cuts through, for example, if you ever tested, like I have on denim or fabric materials. It's very, very effective, like very deadly, and it can just quickly make a slash through any materials, So it's good for tactical use. Now, the Umnumzaan comes in two versions: this tanto style, which means that's a tanto tip, or this regular one, like that, a sort of spear point. Now, regardless of which way you choose, they're both hollow grind. The tanto version is stronger tip, so you can do more thrusting. Again, you may hear that a tanto was originally created by the samurai to help pierce through armor. And the idea of a tip that opens up a hole and then continuously slides through with no resistance, if you understand, compared to this, where if a point enters, that hole has to continuously expand to go in. But in modern settings, unless you're going to stab a can, the tanto point main benefit is it does provide a stronger tip, which can allow for more, perhaps, variety in what you might consider using the knife for. Now, the thing is, where then that kind of is a little bit to me of a contradiction is now, if you were to stab with this, you saw that then it could disengage. Now, a tactical knife, typically, if you follow my channel, has to have certain features for me because of the use you're using it for and the danger of moving around and basically fighting with a knife. You have that risk of your hand unlocking the knife, or even just the knife not opening all the way because you're not paying attention. And I always require that have a choil, something to protect your finger first before the blade reaches it. And this knife doesn't have that. Also, a lot of knives that are tactical will have a lot of ergonomics, meaning a shape to the handle that provides, more safety, I guess, and less risk of you perhaps sliding your hand down the blade. So, if you look at an Umnumzaan and you say, well, it's not for fighting, and Mr. Reeves was not really condone those kind of things and design his knives that way, and it's not really for outdoor use, then you start to look at what an Umnumzaan is, okay? An Umnumzaan, to me, is a very, very well-made, very refined, modest, maybe more simple knife. It has simple features. And when I say that, if you can understand what I mean simple, is that, for example, some knives may have locking mechanisms. Fancy locking mechanisms. They'll have multiple ways of deployment. They'll have perhaps options of carry, 4-way pocket clips. They'll provide a variety of features. Safety choil. It's easy to use with gloves. Or like a strider. They'll provide something to the knife. Perhaps low maintenance. Perhaps hard use. The Umnumzaan is more simple in nature. It is a knife that you primarily just do small knife cutting tasks. And what small knife cutting tasks can be is a lot. You can do a lot with a small cutting tool. So the question is this the best small cutting tool you can get, and for the price? Now, some of the things that make Chris Reeve knives so great. Well, first, Chris Reeve had a part in making S30V, which is the kind of world standard now of like I would say above average knives, production knives. Now S30V is very difficult to sharpen because the V stands for vanadium, and vanadium is what really helps keep a certain level of edge retention. What a lot of custom knife makers will do, such as Kingdom Armory, he keeps his Rockwell hardness very low, like I think it's at 56 or 50, I don't know, lower than that maybe. While Mr. Reeves has it between 58 to 59, and Spyderco will push it up to 60 or 60. I think I remember in my last test the Striders were at 59.5. The Spydercos were high, and the harder it gets, the harder it is to sharpen. Well, the higher that Rockwell number, but also the more chance it'll chip. And being that this is a hollow grind with a thin edge, Mr. Reeves in a smart move, chose not to over harden it. His steel, in my experience, is a good medium. Like it can chip if you do something crazy with the tip, but at the same time, it'll break off. But at the same time, if you saw my last test, you can hit a can and it won't, break down. You won't, perhaps chip. It'll more just roll. And so, it's sort of that like good in between. It's a good Rockwell hardness on Mr. Reeves steel. So his new stuff is now going up to S35 VN, which is even more tough. What he chooses to harden that will depend. His hardware is all very high quality. This stainless steel hardware that you see on this Umnumzaan, which is all males and females, meaning one screw that's a tube that goes through, and then another screw that screws into it. All three of these are females. Normally the Umnumzaan only comes with one screw in front, one screw in the back. But regardless, before I get into that, all of the hardware is done very well. Probably the best, if not second best, to what's most out there, that in terms of the resilience it has to constantly taking apart and putting together. And Mr. Reeves, always with every knife packages a description and a little thing of how to take it apart. And that's unique too, because some companies will say you avoided your warranty by taking it apart. Well, Mr. Reeves, he kind of implores it, like he says, go ahead and try, because he knows there's no problem. And what it means is that Mr. Reeves, when he makes a knife, what you're paying for a lot is the less maintenance, the less problems that may arise. For example, if you take apart a Bob Lum tanto and you put it back together, your blade may not be centered. You'll have trouble pushing the screws perhaps and getting everything in place. You'll screw this screw, but perhaps it won't go in as smooth as the other screw. Things will be always a little bit kind of mismatched, and you'll be like, it's just not perfect. Not every time, don't even have to think about it. That's what you get, like compared to the Benchmade. A Benchmade pivot. And there was another video by some guy talking about this, that you could screw the pivot down just a little bit too tight and the knife won't open. A little bit too loose and the knife blade is loose. While on the Umnumzaan and other Chris Reeve knives, it's like perfectly machined. The space of the female to the male is done so precise that you just screw it down as if you were normally screwing it down, and that's it. Your knife is centered. You never even have to try to really focus on that idea. And if that's something that you're paying for, if you value that sort of you don't have to dealing with that kind of nonsense. You see, the length of that female, that its tube, is the exact same measurement of what goes in between everything, these two heads. And so when you just screw it down all the way, everything is lined up perfectly automatically and the blade centered always. So this is the female pivot. This is my extra one. Like I said, very good hardware. It's not open construction female, so it could rust inside, but you do have also you can purchase, these are the tools that go onto the Umnumzaan. The knife will loosen as you use it constantly if there's not Loctite. So Mr. Reeves gives you Loctite actually, and he does, and you can use Teflon tape. If you use Teflon tape, you can actually tighten and untighten even without anything holding this pivot in place. You can use your hand pressure to tighten and untighten the pivot. Now, other design things to mention are the back screw. Now, if you do intend to use the knife hard, now Mr. Reeve normally has this lanyard here, which just holds in place. You can see the lanyard has no, it's just straight across on each side, so it doesn't actually provide any spacing this way. It doesn't actually hold these two apart a certain distance. It just is in there. It's in a good spot to where it never folds over here to get in your way of your hand grabbing it. It won't ever do this by accident. So it's always up here. Now that's good. Now the flaw to that though is just that if you do use it hard, doing more tasks that cause vibrations perhaps, then this one standoff is not enough to keep it together, and there will be lots of movement that eventually will have this screw unscrew. Of course, unless you're always Loctite. Now, and even then, Loctite can possibly unglue. So bear in mind. So in here I have two, and then after that, the rigidity has increased dramatically, and you can feel the difference when you hold it. Other design features are, well, Mr. Reeves has added these little washers right here. I forgot what kind of material they're made of, but they're durable. They're like inside cars and stuff, and those help the impact. But what they help kind of do is create a sort of springiness here to here between the lock bar and the blade. The lock bar, Mr. Reeves has added, and I'm going to show you. I'll take it apart in a second. Has added a ceramic ball to help preserve it, and kind of similar now to what you'll see Spyderco is doing with the little metal plate there, the little stainless steel plate insert on the lock bar surface. Now, in terms of other things about the design, of course, Chris Reeve pop clips are great. They're great to hold in your pocket. They really clip it down. The finish, Mr. Reeves bead blast or sandblast, this gray coat that kind of provides some grip definitely, is very easy to just reapply, which is kind of why Chris Reeve now you can just send it in and get it refurbished to look brand new quite easily. Mr. Reeves warranty, some people will complain that it's a little bit, for example, like if you slightly abuse your knife, or that you avoid your warranty. But on average, I would say that that's not the case. They're very helpful, and their customer service is something that is really outstanding in comparison to what's out there. But it depends. Depends on what side you're on in their favor. It just depends on I guess perhaps how you guys get to know each other. Now, another feature about this is the glass breaker. A lot of people will hear, for example, first of all, if you were to use this as an impact weapon, a non-lethal impact weapon, you have to hold it closed and upside down, so you wouldn't. It's not like traditional where the glass breaker you'll see on DPXs and Lion Steels and other knives, the BBR1 where they hit, and because you want to be able to hit with the butt of the knife and then still be able to open it. So this is actually flipped over, so it's kind of a little funny. And then the other logic is that a lot of times you'll hear that a lot of people do not want to hit their hand against glass so close. They would rather use the tip of the knife to break it. Now there's another method, but I want to test that one. And regardless, they want to keep their hand as far away from the knife as possible, from the glass as possible. And in terms of deployment, that's another thing where this is lacking in terms of tactical use. The thumb studs are so close to the handle. You can see that there's just not much room to access it. For example, on a Warren Thomas knife, it'll be far out. Or other knives will have spider holes. You know, a Umnumzaan, you really have to get your finger. It's only your thumb that can really do it. You can't really put your forefinger and catch it. You only have really one way to deploy it, and the D10 is very strong to where you can't shake it open. So that makes it a little limited again, a little bit more simple in design. Those are some of the design features, and if we were to compare it to a Bob Lum tanto, I thought it was kind of interesting. A Reeve Umnumzaan next to a Bob Lum tanto, and I found this very interesting when I saw these two. You know, for example, they're both 3.75-inch blades, long. You can see they both have a similar profile right here, right there, right before the blade starts. They both have even a similar profile towards the bottom as they curve out, you know, and the butt's down here. The standoff right here, sort of, along with the sort of two or one that would be here, you know. You can see the sort of stick-like shape that they both have. They just, in many ways, they do have some similarities in terms of design, and the blade profiles. You can see the Umnumzaan on the bottom. Both hollow ground. You know, the tip on this one is one bevel right here, while this one has a bevel and then another bevel right there. So what Mr. Reeves did then, he has added two bevels on the top, across the top of the blade, if you can see it, that go down on each side. So there's three edges right here, along with that one in the front. Normally this tip is convex, so if you're not good at convexing, I don't like it, so I end up just creating a another bevel, two bevels up here. But reprofiling it is a pain in the butt. Yeah, reprofiling is annoying. That's all I gotta say. It's difficult, and so is this also normally a convex point. But when you have to reprofile this, you just sand both down, sharpen both. But you can see there's some similarities in terms of design. Now let's go up to the inside. Now the first thing that's nice is that if you had to maintain this in the field, if you had kept this male and female here together, you could slide the handle out, meaning you could slide this piece, if you took the pivot out that way, access the blade, and deal with the maintaining of it, and then put it back. These females, you know, these are open, and they go all the way, and they're shouldered, meaning that the female goes into the other side, so it provides a sort of structural rigidity, you know, this way. Now perhaps one of the most awesome and ingenious features, and I don't know why only Mr. Reeve does this, is his washers. He mills holes into his washers, and when combined with his crispy fluorinated grease, which is some very, very good stuff. Crispy fluorinated grease is not very fluid, so it doesn't seep through and drip off. It tends to clump up like a paste, and once it's inside these holes, it tends to not escape these little grooves, and so it always is inside those holes, providing lubrication. You can see these phosphor bronze washers are very large in size, you know, and at the same time they're both the same size diameter, and they're very good quality. That extra, the big washer, along with the large pivot, you know, is why, you know, this knife can be put together and take apart and always center, because, you know, there's just so much. There's just, because of all that, because of those two aspects, you know, this always stays centered and flat, never slightly off. You can see, so this is the knife taken apart, and you can see how simple it was. And the last one would be this screw that goes into the lock bar. Now the lock bar is cut out on the inside, and if you followed, that doesn't help because it's a long lock bar with the cutout on the inside, so it does sort of, this has sort of a weak point in terms of like, you know, harder use, you know, rather than the cutout being on the outside, because then the force kind of is going at an angle rather than down. Now you can see here is there is a little channel, right? Basically like a little canal. And there's this little channel. I'd asked custom knife makers about it, And they say it's not necessary. You can see what happens actually. The grease can get, the hole overlaps the channel so that grease will little by little escape on this lock bar side. And the grease goes near, but not I would say not too close to the lock up, which is actually a ceramic ball. And I can say what over time you can see how the ceramic ball wears the back of the blade tang. It actually digs another channel into it. Can you see? How you can see how what happens is you can see like it's not perfectly straight across. It goes if the knife was put together this way, it does go upward. You can see it goes that way. Now I can show you something that's interesting. Get the knife back together. That's stiff. Regardless, you can see now because these stop pin, the stop pin, thumb luck stop pin, you know, has that washer there. You know, it's not fully always contacting this the two pieces of titanium, and because the ceramic ball is there, you can see watch. See, I can push it in. It's just not as solid as just good old-fashioned the Sebenza. For me personally, I prefer the Sebenza. Another thing too, you can see this. See that? So yeah, there we go. See? So you know, I feel in the end just the good old-fashioned Sebenza with its normal titanium lock face here. I mean, if 21 years it's working, you know, it's just the way to go. The knife is got a hot spot right here too. This little sharp corner, I even sand it down a little bit because it digs right there. But in the end, this is what I would say. If you're going to get this knife, what you're looking at is a sort of simple knife, one that definitely you don't use tactically, and you don't really use outdoors. You use as just a sort of normal knife. What you're paying for is precision manufacturing, precision, you know, machining and cutting, and you know, spacing, and high quality construction, but also some simplicity and limitations in what you can do with it. And if what you feel your needs are, you know, this meets, then okay. For me personally, I like then a small Sebenza, because if this knife is only going to function as a light cutting tool, then I only need it to be a small, compact, little, simple knife. And I prefer then that Sebenza because it is smaller with its 3-inch blade, and it's just something, you know, more compact. Now, personally, I have to say though, if I feel that this knife is worth it? For me, I do not, because I feel that at this price range you can find knives, for example, a paramilitary 2, and you can get it with a special steel like the CTS 20CP, which is like S90V, which is basically like, I don't know, 3 times the edge retention looks like on the graph. If you go look it up, of S30V, while being a lower Rockwell hardness, so it's easier to sharpen. So you can get a super steel, and then, you know, at the same time, you know, you can get a flat grind, which at least does a little bit better outdoors. And you know, this knife with the lower Rockwell hardness can cut through fabrics very well too. Actually, darn equal, if not sometimes better, sometimes, you know, just about equal. So if you want to use this knife for a tactical use, you know, I feel that there's other knives out there at that price range that can provide tactical use and a little bit more performance for outdoors, and perhaps features such as safety choils and more ergonomics and more variety in how you can carry them and open them, and at the same time still provide you decent quality, such as Spyderco. There's just so many options out there. Warren Thomas knives, just a lot of custom knives. Martin knives, just things out there that you can find that can provide you, a very high level of quality steel also, and more features, in terms of a design. That's my review on the Umnumzaan. I hope it was helpful, whoever's considering it, and until next time, thank you.